Alright, so earlier this year, the newest Transformers film, Transformers: Rise of the Beast, hit into theaters, and I have seen it. I have finally finished watching all 8 Transformers films, and so today I'm going to rank all 8 of the movies. But before I do that, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell, comment down below. What is your opinions on the Transformers movies? What is your ranking of all? I believe there's 8 of them. Anyways, I want to know your ranking down below, and with that said, let's get started. And number 8 is easily, in my opinion, The Last Knight. And for some reason, a movie with writers, like actual writers, is worse than a movie without any writers. That's kind of a spoiler for what happens next, but this movie is worse than a movie that had no writers whatsoever. Think about that. Did this movie even have writers? Because it feels like there was writers to start plots and like interesting plots, but they just left mid-project, and so Michael Bay was like, Transformer action, and then skip all the plots, and we're gonna do cool things with Optimus Prime and battles, and it's just, it's best what I can describe as nonsensical. There is fun to be had in this movie. I do enjoy a lot of the sequences. I do enjoy the characters. I do enjoy some funny moments. And I do like the chemistry between the main lady and Mark Wahlberg. They had good chemistry. Some of the fight scenes were pretty fun. There is some fun things that Michael Bay keeps into this movie. But the overall story is not only uninteresting, but it's stupid and messy and makes no sense. The character arcs that the characters are supposed to have make no sense. The movie is about trying to find this key because King Arthur and stuff, like King Arthur and stuff, and it just makes no sense. Like, barely makes any sense, and it doesn't fit into the continuity of, like, the knights and all that. It's just not, in that aspect, it's not even that entertaining, and the story, it doesn't really interest me. And then, like, when we get to the final ending, where the character arcs are supposed to come down, a big thing and a big marketing of this movie is Optimus Prime turns bad and wants to now turn Earth into Cybertron. And it's hinted throughout the entire movie that the ending of the movie is going to be this big, ginormous battle between Optimus Prime and the Autobots. But the ending is Optimus Prime fighting Bumblebee. Bumblebee gets his voice back. He says, Optimus Prime are friends. Optimus Prime is like, oh, okay, cool. I'm back now. That's how that pays off. And that's what this whole movie is like. It's just nonsensical, incompetent nonsense. That the movie is just terrible. It takes all the entertainment value, stuff that I would have entertained, and I was just, it made me bored of the movie. Like, during the final act, there's some cool stuff that could happen, but all I wanted was a movie to end because it was just, the story was nonsensical, and I could not care what happened. And there wasn't even any stakes, because we knew what would happen. The Autobots would win. That's what this movie is. And so while it's got some fun things, it's got some cool Michael Bay-isms, it's still a very, very, very badly and poorly written movie. Number 7, I'm going to have to give it to Revenge of the Fallen. Like I said, the movie that with actual writers was worse than a movie with no writers. But this is a movie that is bad because of one thing. Dogs humping dogs, dogs humping humans, dogs humping robots, humans humping dogs, humans humping robots, robots humping dogs. It's more of Michael Bay than any of these movies, because this was during the writer's strike where they were like, yeah, we got to get out a Transformers movie because the first one was so popular, but we don't have any writers. Michael Bay, what are you going to make this about? So they make it about some dust and Autobots being reborn and action sequences, cool action sequences from Michael Bay, but there's just so much Michael Bay-isms in this movie that it feels like the writers, which there were none. It would have been a good movie, I think, if there was writers. But because there was no writers, we got just so much inappropriate, stupid Michael Bay stuff. They're constant humping. Constant like, ooh, you're hot. Constant boob flesh. Stuff like that. That just makes this movie painful to watch. And I rewatched this and I was like, this is painful. I knew I didn't like it when I first watched it, but this was just painful to watch because of all this. Like, the story is barely existent. And it's like Michael Bay was like, okay, here's what we're going to do for the movie. Transformers are fighting over there. Megan Fox is hot over there. Movie. Oh, yeah, and don't forget, the dog is doing his thing over there.
Mojo, no dominating Frankie. Get the hell off the couch yet.
And it's just really, really weird and just does not work throughout the entire movie. And it just does not fit into here. And for the longest time, that made me not want to watch the rest of the sequels, was just because of this movie. The first Transformers movie is really good. The sequel, clearly lacking that writing, and is unfortunately going to be this low. And another thing here is number 6, which might surprise a lot of you, because, and it definitely surprises me for being this low, but it also has a good reason for being this low, is Transformers the movie from the 1980s, the animated movie. And I watched this one, I pirated this one off YouTube because I could not find it in any streaming services, and then I went to Walmart the next day and they got a big stand with about 4 copies of Transformers the movie. And I pirated it off YouTube. It was great quality, whatever. Things I liked about this movie, this is a really story-heavy Transformers movie. It's one of the best story-wise, to where all the there's robots here, there's deaths here that make this feel like there's stakes. If I grew up watching the cartoon and I just watch all these Transformers die, I think this would have been great. The story here is Unicron recruits Megatron to try to destroy Earth and other planets, and that's a really complex and interesting story for this movie. It's fun. It's got robots shooting at each other with fun 80s music. It's just a pure blast of 80s stuff. Sure, I never watched the 80s cartoon, and people say if you haven't watched it, you wouldn't know what's going on. I understand it perfectly. Unicron's trying to destroy planets. It's just Transformers shooting at each other. And it's entertaining. This is what I would call an entertaining movie. The problem, I think, with the film here is that not only should it have only been an hour, cut off a whole half hour of this movie, but it's just way too long and the ending just didn't interest me. After about half of a movie of robots shooting at each other with 80s music playing, I really started to miss Michael Bay. Michael Bay would have robots attacking each other, human characters that are interesting. This movie just has robots shooting at each other and a good story and good deaths. That's what it is. And if it was like an hour episode of the 80s TV show, this would have been much higher. It wouldn't even have been on this list because it would have been an episode. This is what it should have been, was like just a little story arc in the show, not made into a full movie. Because in the full movie, you gotta have a runtime that makes it a movie. And the sequences with the robots on this other planet, and they're about to be thrown into the shark tank and all that stuff, and they're on the trash planet fighting these motorcyclists, all that is just not interesting compared to Megatron and Unicron destroying planets together. That is a much more interesting story and would have made for a great even season finale arc. But they made it into a movie, and it just has unnecessary plot lines inside the movie, and it just made me feel bored by the end of the movie. And at the end, I really couldn't care what happens, because I know Unicron's going to get defeated, whatever. So, pretty good first half of the movie. The second half, which I would consider like the last half hour, starts to dip just a little bit. It's still a fun enough movie. It's just, it should have been a TV show. Number 5, kicking off my personal top 5, Age of Extinction. And I think Transformers the movie would be the one that starts to up it from me. Last Night, Revenge of the Fallen, that's way low. Transformers movie is good, just with problems. And the big problem with this one is, it has way too many plot lines. When we head to the let me get this right. When we head into the finale of the film, we get the dinosaurs, we get the big robots, we get evil bounty hunter robot, we get evil human created robot all fighting each other, we get big missile going to destroy Earth, we get all of these things in about an hour fight scene. And when this is a 2 hour and 45 minute long movie, we get all these plot lines, and right as they're about to conclude, in a pretty good way, because I will talk about how I really did like these plot lines in the movie. When we head to the ending, they throws in way too much stuff. Optimus Prime giving a big speech to the dinosaurs. I completely forgot this movie is supposed to be about dinosaurs. And so throwing that in there, it's just all messy in the final act. The final act's still very fun. I still enjoyed myself. It's just like, why would you bring in all of these dinosaurs and all these stuff that didn't need to be here? With that said, I think this movie is pretty good. Not only do I like the human characters of Mark Wahlberg and his daughter, but I also really did dig a lot of the plot lines that we had here. We had a plot line about his daughter getting kidnapped, a plot line about the humans building robots to do their bidding to protect Earth instead of the Autobots. We get the plot line about Autobots being hunted, which is a very compelling plotline considering the big events of Dark of the Moon destroyed a lot of stuff. And so the Autobots are being hunted. Humans are trying to make their own robots, but they're also using a Decepticon to hunt the Autobots because the Decepticon couldn't care about the humans. And so there's just all these compelling plot lines, and throughout the most of the film, I thought they were explored really, really well with compelling human characters. All had great chemistry with one another. The Autobots are in here. The new Autobots are compelling enough. John Goodman is in this movie. I did not know John Goodman would be in this movie, and he's in as an Autobot, one of my favorite Autobots. I think all that really works, and it's very fun to watch. Just big CGI robots attacking each other. After watching Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast back to back, I really did miss the big CGI battles that Michael Bay brought to the franchise, and that's what he does here, and it's really compelling, and it really works for me. I really did have a blast watching this film, and even though a lot of the plot lines at the end of the film did not come together whatsoever, I did think that the first 2 acts of this movie, 3 acts technically because it's like a 3-hour movie, I do think that they really worked and explored a lot of stuff that this Transformers universe would happen if it did, and it's fun and entertaining. 4, and can I make you mad just a little bit? Yeah, because I'm putting Bumblebee this low on my list. Number 4 is Bumblebee, and I gotta say, this movie, compared to a lot of things Michael Bay does, it's not as badly written or inappropriate as those movies. It's not as terrible and like inconsistent and terrible writing again. It's got great human characters, but I did kind of miss the Michael Bay isms in this movie. And that's a big problem, is that it doesn't have the same CGI battle in big in-game fights like the Michael Bay films do, and I did kind of miss that. Also, the movie was really also trying to have Michael Bay's sense of humor with like the inside jokes, the self-consciousness of it. It didn't really work for this movie. But the thing here is it's a competent and a really well-made movie. The cast is all great. They all have great interactions with each other. And the character work is done really well to where we got this girl who's turning 18 having problems with her mother. Kind of can be relatable to me. And she gets a car, finally. And the car turns out to be a robot, so it's kind of like a girl and her dog, kind of like the E.T. type story here. And it can be pretty fun in the middle act. The Bumblebee and the girl forgot her name for a second, have excellent chemistry throughout the entire movie. Tensions can be pretty high as you like the characters here. And like I said, they can be relatable to me. And it's like I said, it's just very competent. It's not just robots shooting at each other constantly. It's a very story-focused movie that is just really works for me. But it does have those issues of not being an enjoyable Michael Bay movie with big Transformers action. Michael Bay lends himself very well to big Transformers action. This movie, if it had Michael Bay but like better writers, it could have been better. Like, the action wasn't near as good as it could have been. Some story arcs in the end of the film didn't really match up. It wasn't as good as I thought it was when I first watched it when it first came out. But there's still a lot of positives with this movie. It's a competently made movie. I could not put it low on this list because it's still a really good it's not a great Transformers movie, but it's still a really good movie in general. 3rd, Transformers Rise of the Beast. And the same kind of thing with Bumblebee. I do kind of miss Michael Bay. Like I said right after to the girl I went with, I said, yeah, but imagine if this movie was directed by Michael Bay. and had this good of writers, then it would have been a great movie. Because I do think that the first two acts, the action sequences, are a little boring. They're not as entertaining as Michael Bay would have made them. And I just miss the Michael Bay flair that was here. It was a very safe blockbuster to watch. With that said, it's got a great story. It's got great human characters. I really do like Anthony Ramos. I really do like... I wasn't that big of a fan of Dominic Fishback's character, but I really did like Anthony Ramos in this movie, and there's stakes here. And even though it's not really stakes, because we all know the world's gonna survive, it's still, like, it's competent. It's not, like, incompetent. The human characters have stakes. They have things that they are going to, and have goals, instead of just being like, save the world. It's... let's save the world because I have a family, and it's condensed. And like I said, sure, the first two acts weren't as entertaining as I thought they should have been. The final battle here is very fun. It's got Transformers shooting each other in a very stylized manner. Like, I like the stylized action. We got cool things. And the villains are evil enough to where you want to see them get killed. And when Optimus Prime takes out Scourge, it's a big victory, and you could feel the big victory, and all that really works. But imagine if the movie was this good and it was directed by Michael Bay. Then it would have been way more entertaining than it actually was, because it wasn't as entertaining as I think it should have been. Sure, it's entertaining enough. I enjoyed myself, but if it was directed by Michael Bay, it would have had big action sequences, but the story being this competent. The same thing with Bumblebee. If these two movies were directed by Michael Bay, had Michael Bay's big action flair, then it would have been competent. It wouldn't have been played safe. Both of these movies feel like they were played safe to be good movies, but that what Transformers is big action sequences, and none of these really had that. And plus, I don't even really know where the Transformers franchise is going away. They didn't really leave much room for a sequel, which Stephen Cappell's planning on doing a trilogy. I don't know how they do that. And speaking of, Stephen Cappell is a great director. I really like Stephen Cappell. But if it was directed by Michael Bay, it would have been a great movie. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed a lot of things in this movie. But the two movies non-directed by Michael Bay were always missing something for me. Second place, I got Transformers Dark of the Moon. And this, you clearly feel a much more competent writing than you did with all the other Michael Bay movies. Because like compared to Transformers 2, Transformers 4, and Transformers 5, you can tell that there was actual writers that knew what they were doing. They come in here in this movie, and they pit one goal. Megatron, and not Megatron, but the Decepticons are here. They're going to bring in portals to turn the world into Cybertron and start a war with the humans. And the Autobots are going to do that. It's not inappropriate jokes, and plot lines always crashing in. It's one very focused movie. And in a way, it can feel a bit bland and like the most basic out of all Bay's movies. But it can also feel competent. And out of all Bay's movies, this is the most competent one. Plus, the big final battle for Chicago is absolutely incredible and really cool to watch. This big spiral go through all the buildings. That's all really cool to watch. It's a great battle. The human characters, they're not as good. I think Sam Witwicky as a whole is probably my least favorite human character in the whole franchise. Not a human character in the whole franchise, but the batch of the first trilogy, they're weakest human characters, but they're still good enough. The twist villain of Sentinel is really well done. The thing is, it's basic. It's got one story. It doesn't really have a flair to it, where in the first Transformers, the shtick was we get to see Autobots in live action. Second Transformers, the shtick was we didn't have any riders. I don't know what the shtick was for that movie. The fourth movie shtick was we have dinosaurs, and the fifth movie shtick was we go into the backstory, and, I don't really know what the fifth movie shtick was because it made no sense. Anyways, this movie shtick was we got Transformers battling each other in Chicago, and it's big, it's monumental for the franchise. It works, but it's very basic and travels to one area. But in that way, it's kind of what I feel like Rise of the Beast and Bumblebee should have been. It is directed by Michael Bay with this competent of a story, this competent of goals. We know what is going on. It should have been just like that, but like it's Michael Bay's it's very clear that this is his most competent Transformers movie, and that's what makes it really good, and it really works in that sense. Still, I did have problems with the movie, like I said, very basic, but for a Michael Bay Transformers movie, the writing cannot get better than this. Come on, you really did not think that the first Transformers wouldn't be my favorite? The first Transformers is easily number one. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love this movie because not only does it have the ridiculous writing that Michael Bay does, the ridiculous action, the ridiculous flair that Michael Bay puts in all of his Transformers films, but it's fun, it's funny, it's not overly repetitive like constantly the sequels can be. It's Transformers fighting on Earth with great writing, not even great writing, but it's Michael Bay where he doesn't just do the same thing over and over again. It's fresh. It was the first time something like this has happened with great CGI, big battles, awesome, and I really did like the character. Sam Witwicky was not annoying like I thought he was in a lot of other things in this movie. He has great chemistry with Megan Fox. It's just a movie that starts this franchise in like not a very competent way. It's definitely got like the big CGI battles, the terrible writing that Michael Bay can do, but it's fun, and it's not even like bad writing. There's just like the self-consciousness and the funny quirkiness that Michael Bay can make in his movies. That's what makes this one so special. Is it's not just terrible writing with bad consistency. It's not great writing, but it's fun and it's fresh, and that's what makes it number one. I will rewatch this movie all day. This movie is so entertaining. That is my rating of the Transformers movies. I'm going to Texas. I know this video might even be uploaded tomorrow, or it might be uploaded on Friday. I don't know when I'm going to upload it, but I'm going to Texas. And so, yeah. There's another week, no videos. I still got a DCEU ranking video to do, Indiana Jones ranking video to do. When I get back, I'm going to watch Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning. Mission Impossible ranking to do, a Haunted Mansion, Barry Season 4. This list goes on and on. This summer is crazy. But thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. And with that said, subscribe to Join the Nerd Army.